Hi, I'm Graham. I'm a golfer who's passionate about technology and also a caddy in the north coast of Ireland. Me and my team are on a journey to create an app for the golf caddying industry, and while we're at it, we want to speak to as many interesting people creating exciting projects within the golf industry. I believe the future of this game is bright, my friends, and this is the Future of Golf podcast.
What's up, guys? I'm just going through the audio of this podcast, and for some reason the audio on my side has turned out really blurry. Not quite sure why this has happened because I was using headphones. I think the audio may have been picked up by the Mac on this, so apologies for the audio on my side. The conversation is still very clearly listenable, and for that reason I thought it's definitely worthwhile uploading. Apologies to James, and also apologies to Alex, who's on the next podcast. I think the same thing has happened. Learn a point for the future and enjoy this episode.
I'm getting more used to the time difference between my American guests, and we sort of messed up a little bit with the times, and I appreciate you coming on. You're now on Mountain Time, so what time is it? You over here? It's 9 or 10, is it?
It's about 9:30 a.m. here. Yeah, time zones can be a little tricky sometimes, but that's okay. We push through and we move on.
Push through it, getting it done. And I heard you went to the PGA Show last week as well. How's that?
I attended the show. I've been in the past. Numbers were down in terms of attendance because of COVID. Right, COVID has created this weird kind of aspect that we're all living in now. This environment that we all have to deal with in terms of being able to do things in person. But I will tell you that the conversations I was able to have were that much more intimate and meaningful. So in one sense, in terms of what I and what my team here is accomplishing or trying to accomplish, it actually benefited us. It worked in our favor.
Yeah, there definitely is. There's a certain intimacy about in-person conversations that you can't replicate through a Zoom. As it's like little body language things that you can sort of pick up from people. I would love to be over myself, not just to get a trip to Florida, but to actually see people involved in the golf tech sector as well. Was there any projects that really stood out to you while you were there that really seemed like an emerging feature of the golf industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting golf brands out there that are doing incredible things in terms of their point of view, sustainability, the fabrications, the direction. I saw Radmore. Radmore is an awesome brand that was created by Scott Morrison, who formerly had a large foray in the denim industry. Lyle and Scott, another incredible brand that surprisingly had already had an understanding and knowledge of NFTs and had already kind of dipped into the space a little bit. Holderness and Bourne, True Footwear, Cricket. There was a number of brands that are really doing really interesting things. I had the opportunity to speak with a number of individuals there that were very receptive to the idea of entering the NFT space. So for us, it was an extremely successful show. And, luckily we had a good host as well, though. Marty Hackle, who was the fashion director at Golf Digest for 20 years. He is a partner in Clubhouse Archives and an advisor to the brand and the business.
Fantastic.
So we were kind of walking around with the mayor, if you will, and that always helps.
That's awesome. You can easily open a few doors when you have that contact.
Sure.
I think you always need that in a startup. You need someone with a few contacts who can build those relationships quicker than what you would with cold emails. So, yeah, I mean, that sounds fantastic. Obviously, it is a dream of mine to get over there. That's a really interesting point you mentioned with the more established brands like the Lyle and Scott. I'm actually wearing Lyle and Scott underneath this. Not sponsored. Yet. But yeah, like even what sort of vibe did you get from the likes of like a TaylorMade or a Titleist? Like, would they have entertained the conversation of like NFTs, or is that crazy talk for like the mainstream golf industry at the minute?
Not at all. Not at all. I don't think anybody is immune to the conversation because
Yeah.
once you understand what NFTs are and how they're going to shape the future of many industries, it's actually an easy conversation to have because you can start to develop utility around ways that can value your community, right? And everyone has communities. Titleist has a massive community, and TaylorMade has a massive community, and Callaway and all. We didn't approach them for one very specific reason: is I'm a believer in the little bighorn mentality where you should first position yourself next to these individuals and have some success and execute, and then those larger organizations will come. Now, that doesn't mean that we didn't have some very large conversations. That just means I think it's probably smarter to focus on an entry point. And that entry point for us was apparel specifically because we just felt like that was going to be kind of the most success that we would see early on. So that's kind of where we attacked first. As that begins to expand and grow, we're definitely going to reach out to others. And we actually spoke to a ball manufacturer that has a really, really cool concept that actually involved an artist that was doing some artwork for the balls themselves. And I saw that as a great conversation and segue into NFTs. So I initiated that conversation, and the reception was what I thought it was going to be, extremely well. So I don't think that any particular segment of golf is going to be immune to this conversation.
Yeah.
And in fact, I really believe that we're going to see in this year and in the next year a lot of these segments doing things just on their own because that's the direction and the momentum of what we're doing. So it won't surprise me at all to see Titleist doing NFTs.
Prevent it, yeah. And you can even see from sort of the mainstream fashion brands like the Adidas and the like. I definitely have heard something of Adidas's involvement in the space, and it's just it's a huge marker there. If these massive players in the industry are starting to become involved, surely the bigger brands in golf and other sports will then take advantage of it, because it, like, to me, I like to feel I'm getting more educated in the space, but I feel like it's just a really effective way to reward people who really like your products and your community. And the great thing about NFT, I was talking to Alex, who's the founder of Pixel Links Golf, which is
Sure.
basically like an NFT golf game. He loves his Twitter as well. But he summarized NFTs really well, and he said the great thing about it is, unlike a Fortnite skin or something like that, once you are tired of your NFT or maybe have no longer use for it, you can just sell it on instead of having to buy the next thing and the next thing. So yeah, I guess that sort of segues nicely into your project. So I suppose the conversation has been very much fashion now, and I can tell that's a little bit of a passion of yours. So before you got into this project, were you involved in fashion or apparel at all in some way?
Yeah, so I've been in apparel for 21 years. That is my career, where my expertise lies. I've been designing, developing, and producing men's, women's, and children's collections for the better part of 21 years. I've owned my own brands. I've worked for very large organizations as a design director. I currently work for an apparel technology company. So to say that my passion is rooted in apparel and fashion is definitely not a misnomer of any kind. It's 100% accurate.
Yeah, I mean, if you're spending probably half of your life in something, like, you're clearly in some way passionate about it. And I think this is actually a really interesting time for golf fashion, because you have the emergence of, I guess, more casual clothes wear. So you see professionals wearing hoodies. Um, I guess, do you think there's some transition occurring now in golf fashion to a different style of apparel? Or what do you think the modern golfer, as per se, is looking for in a fashion brand?
I think the modern golfer, what they're looking for is performance first, right? Everyone wants to ensure that um, the apparel they buy into from a sports standpoint, especially golf, is going to perform the way that they want it. But I think what we're seeing in the past few years, and if you look at people like Ricky Fowler specifically, we're seeing that emergence of directional golf, whereas the individuality of the golfer is now also a thing. And we did see that in the past. Stuart Payne is a perfect example where people had their individual
Yeah,
persona.
even Tiger, I guess, with Sunny
Tiger,
Red.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was more in a traditional sense. Whereas now,
I guess.
the
Yeah,
modern golfer is starting to get a little more loud and a little more fun
yeah,
in that individuality. And I think the reason for that is we're starting to see the, the game evolve in terms of its audience. So as we see the game evolve in terms of its audience, to be the less traditional golfer and a little bit more of the modern golfer that we know today, to not necessarily have come from the sport maybe as being played younger, but just kind of getting into it as a recreation, that brings in a new host of need for the individual. And I think we're starting to see that in a lot of the branding and a lot of the
yeah,
styles that are coming out in the golf world.
yeah. It's funny though because I remember a few years ago, I think Ryan Moore wore like a shirt and tie out in the course. It was always really traditional, and I thought because it was so unique, it almost nearly stood out to be like, wow, this is so cool. And I thought that was going to be a little resurgence in like the really traditional wear, but I suppose we haven't seen that. Um, so I guess going to your project then, it's very much based on, from my reading around it, it's sort of like a almost like a marketplace for golfers to buy and trade luxury fashion apparel that you've created. So I guess transitioning from I guess the physical world of fashion to this like digital universe, what was your little spark or inspiration to get involved in that?
Well, as I mentioned, I've been in apparel for 21 years now, and one of the things that most people don't understand about the industry is there's a lot going on in terms of logistics and production and design and development, that has its positive attributes, and then it has a ton of negative attributes. One of those is wastage. We all know that the fashion and apparel industry has a massive amount of wastage, whether that's in fabric and product itself and labels and materials. But another is just the fragile nature of the industry and how much it depends on the world to be almost in a perfect state, right?
Yeah.
So things like COVID and supply chains and tariffs and taxes and all of these things over the past 20 years just start to weigh on you. So when I learned about
Yeah.
NFTs and understood that you could create a cleaner and in a lot of senses greener approach to it, and I know Bitcoin has its issues of being green, so we don't even use that. Ethereum is
Hmm.
working out its issues, but there are plenty of other blockchain technologies that even have a
Hmm.
negative carbon footprint. So
Yeah.
there is a real opportunity for brands to utilize blockchain technology and NFTs as an extension or evolution of their brand. Now, in our
Yeah.
case, what we've done is we said, listen, we're going to create a luxury NFT apparel brand, and we're going to create a marketplace as well. Clubhouse Archives itself is a collection of clubs at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Golf and tennis are two of those initial clubs because I have been a golfer all my life, since I was 16 years old. So a vast majority of my life has been spent on the course. I've got a massive affinity to the game.
Hmm.
A few of the brands that I designed in the past um, had a great affinity to the game as well in the
Hmm.
design. You could see that it was in the DNA. It
Yeah.
was very Americana sportswear, if you will.
Yep.
So we set out to create a brand based around that collection of clubs that will allow our initial members, right, the founding members, to
Mhm.
basically dictate the direction of where that brand will inevitably end up. And what I mean by that is we will release to that initial membership 50 designs. That membership will vote those down to a core group of, let's say, 25. So
Yeah.
they're going to have a hand in the direction that the brand inevitably goes. They'll have access to purchase those NFTs for a 24 to 48 hour period. And then the
Mhm.
public will also have access to that. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because when they purchase those NFTs, that's going to come with a physical garment.
Yeah. I think
So
that's what
that
people don't
makes,
understand at the minute is
yes,
that they
yeah,
think. I guess a lot of NFTs that do exist in the blockchain, they are just a digital asset. There's no physical project that comes with it. Um, but I think it was Gary Vee talking about this the other day. He was saying that what will end up happening is people will end up purchasing physical products, but they could choose whether they actually get it delivered to them. But they'll have the
that's
NFT for that thing, so they
that's
will
right.
have. Imagine just for an example, they'll have a car over in maybe an American will purchase a car over in Ireland, and it will sit over in Ireland, and they can say, okay, I actually want my asset now, but they'll have that NFT, so it'll then be tradable. Is that, I guess, the approach that you're taking to this? Just to get
That's
more insight.
very similar. So we're gonna have an application that does two things. It allows the individual to create an avatar and then see themselves in our apparel. They can then purchase those NFTs and have the option, like you just said, to have a physical garment shipped. Now, our garments are going to come with a scannable NFC technology. So it's just a chip that you can scan that will verify the NFT, among other things. There's some
Yeah,
AR capabilities that you can really add into these that make them more interactive. But that's in essence what we're doing. So our founding membership is really founding a blockchain born luxury apparel brand where its initial aim is in the golf and tennis industry. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, that's the basis of the concept. The other side of that is the marketplace. We're going to allow other golf brands, regardless of kind of what they're, if it's accessories, if it's footwear, if it's headwear, if it's, that doesn't
yeah.
matter, to participate in minting their collections on our
Yeah,
site as well. So
hmm
so it's more than just a brand; it's also a marketplace, as you mentioned before.
yeah. And even in that, like I've seen some golf specific marketplaces emerging, and obviously the massive one in this is OpenSea. That's been the one that's really emerged. And you have your apes and your monkeys being sold in that. Um, I guess, do you think there is an advantage there to have a industry specific marketplace where people know they're typing in I want golf clothes, and they can go onto your website and view that? Do you think that's like a little USP that you guys have?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a bit of a niche, and like I said, it's a collection of clubs. So we do have other clubs that they'll be able to buy into. So we're looking at it as more of a lifestyle, golf being one of the
Oh yeah,
aspects of that lifestyle. So
yeah,
there will be other, yeah, there'll be other, and that's really more. So we're almost creating a lifestyle boutique, like you would see at Bergdorf Goodman's or any of your local boutiques that carry a collection of brands within the contemporary segment that could speak to a different aspect of your lifestyle. So if casual sportswear or streetwear is your thing, we're going to have that too. If golf is your thing, you're going to have the ability to get that as well.
yeah,
But it's all going to have the same look and feel, which then in essence allows you to buy into that lifestyle.
yeah. Do you know what I think is a massive utility to this is that fashion changes so fast, and
That's
also
right.
like imagine you have a junior golfer and he has a shirt, like it's not going to fit him in 6 months. So having this digital asset that can then be traded on, I guess, I think would be massive. Now, I assume like all these projects, I guess the battle for you guys is getting into the mainstream and I guess trying to educate the general golf audience
That's
of
right.
the
That's right.
advantages of using that. So I'd be fascinated as well because obviously I'm trying to build a golf startup myself. So what's your approach as far as I guess marketing the idea, reaching out to consumers?
Yep.
What's your approach been for
Yeah, so we're primarily leaning on social media. That seems to be where the attention is today. And when you look at someone like LinksDAO, that sold 10,000 NFTs in the excess of $10 million in, I believe, a 48 to 72 hour time period,
that?
that lets you know that the power of social media has the bandwidth to support concepts like this. So, in terms of the ability to do that, that's already been proven. All we're doing is coming in and saying, okay, great, you want to buy a golf course? We support that. I'm actually in that Discord and I do support it.
Same. Yep.
This is an extension of that to say, okay, you've got your golf course. What are you going to wear when you're on the course? What is your equipment going to be? What accessories are you going to have? We are aiming to provide that to the individual. Now, LinksDAO is having conversations of their own in terms of merchandise, which is great. We are looking to extend that to a full lifestyle. So that way it's not just what are you wearing on the course? Our question is, what are you wearing off the course? And that is who we're after, is the individual that wants to do an on the course, off the course, full lifestyle kind of experience. Yep.
Yeah. I love it as well because everyone seems to. Yeah, I've said it before, but there seems to be like a feeling of abundance in the industry. Like no one's trying to take food from the other person's table, and I think because it is so emergent, like everyone respects that you have the audacity to try something like this, and it's very admirable. So everyone is hopping on each other discords, adding a little advice here and there, and I think that's a really beautiful part. So do you see the industry because it is sort of decentralized and because it gives power to the users? Do you see it continuing like that, or do you think it's going to start heating up a little bit and get more competitive as these bigger players like a Nike or an Adidas come in and try and take food from, I guess, the little guys' table, which is maybe what will start happening? What at what point does all hell break loose?
Well, and that's a good way to put it. Everything is decentralized until it's not, right? Every
Yeah.
concept is ungoverned until it's not. So I believe that we're going to see governance coming to the degree that it can. Coinbase is going to launch their NFT platform. Coinbase is a publicly traded company in the United States. They're not going to be able to escape governance, and they're going to be a major player in our industry. All of the big brands that are coming in are going to help individuals like myself because they're going to bring in adoption with them. We're about 5% adoption, depending on where you get your information. And at 5%, there is a massive opportunity. Imagine when we're at 25%, 35%, 45%. Those numbers are going to be staggering in terms of the opportunity that exists, and we're only at 5%. So I do think that there'll be market share opportunities for large brands like that, and we've already seen some of that happen. But what they're really doing is they're bringing more eyeballs and more attention into and onto our space, and that's providing more opportunity. The same way the gold rush provided opportunity to local businesses in the area, and large companies didn't come in and gobble that up. There was still plenty of availability for people to make money. The same way the internet provided an opportunity for larger people to come in and inevitably create, the marketplaces that they did. But some of the individuals that are the biggest players in the space were not a household name. Amazon started in a garage, and Amazon didn't worry about Macy's or Saks or Nordstrom or whomever. They just created based on opportunity, and that's all we're doing. So I actually welcome those, but I also know that by the time they get in, the individuals that were the pioneers and the early adopters, like you and I, are going to benefit from that, from just being in early and building. People that come in later could have a tougher time, but we're early enough now to call ourselves pioneers, and typically speaking, there's a massive benefit that is associated with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be classing that. You've actually built something. I'm hanging on to the coattails of everyone that's been brave enough to build in this space. But like part of me thinks about like the golf games that are out there at the minute, like the Tiger Woods PGA Tour. Even like I was chatting to Alex the last time, like World Golf Tour. It's like a computer game for golf. And in those games, you have the option to customize your golfer as far as apparel.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
Now it's a crazy thing we live in because obviously Facebook has brought out this whole metaverse concept where you can work from home, and it's a little bit scary to look at times, but it could be exciting in many use cases. Do you see the opportunity for golfers around the world to eventually, in 20, 30, 40 years' time, play a game of golf in this metaverse where they can then almost use your items in real life? And actually, like, it's a bit of a flex if you have Clubhouse NFTs because you're one of the early adopters and you're wearing it, of course. Do you think that's possible?
Well, not only is it possible, we're betting on it.
Yeah.
So if you look at our roadmap, we want to introduce VR spaces. We want to introduce virtual golf, and there's games like Golf Plus, and like you said a moment ago, the others that exist in the space that we will also look to partner with to create our apparel in those branded spaces as options.
Yep.
In addition to our own virtual game. Now, the other thing that we're doing with all of our clubs, and I didn't even talk about all the clubs that exist because we're primarily focused on golf and tennis in this particular, and golf primarily, we will allow people to attend in real life golf tournaments that we're going to host. So not only will they have the ability to flex virtually, because all of our pieces will be available as wearables in the metaverse. And we don't know what the metaverse is yet, right?
Yeah.
That's still a very loose term that we all throw around until we really know what it becomes.
Yeah.
But we will offer those as wearables. So you will have that opportunity. We didn't even really get into that. But you will have the opportunity to wear that IRL at our golf tournaments that we'll host. And we'll do that in conjunction with some pretty big names. We've got some pretty interesting things going on.
Mm-hmm.
So next year, there's going to be a lot of excitement that I'm going to have around what we're doing because there's going to be some pretty cool names in the golf community involved that will make these tournaments kind of fun and aspirational for our holders. So there's two opportunities there is the answer to that question.
Awesome. I think like with any sort of digital experience, it doesn't have to be a replacement for real life at all. Like people will always enjoy their golf out in the golf course, but it's just I think the benefit for me to having something like that would be I do it once every so often, and it's the ability to meet people from around the globe who have similar interests to me because obviously you're geographically limited to who you play with just based on wherever you are, but it'd be really cool to say I want to play around the golf with James today if we can sync up our simulator or whatever it ends up being to go out and play. I think that's the really cool potential with it. But yeah, like who knows how long that's going to take to get to that point, and obviously I guess we're still reliant on the bigger players in the industry to almost build the infrastructure around that to create that experience. But then that's where brands like you come in. Is once that's there, then you were the pioneers.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's funny. Those types of tournaments are already happening amongst other projects. I've seen they have some tournaments going on, and they're using some of the infrastructure from those larger companies, like you mentioned. But that is actually already happening. And what you're referring to really is just community, right? Like being able to build community and meet new people, and that is really one of the focal points of the NFT industry. Is it's all about community. and which we are large proponents of. So I think that that's going to happen sooner than we actually think. But to the degree that we might think in our minds, yeah, it's probably going to take a minute to catch up where I can just like walk out of the Clubhouse Archives, because we are going to build a virtual space, onto a virtual golf course and just start playing. That is going to be a little further off. But to meet up in some of these other games, I think that kind of stuff's happening now.
How long will it be until we have virtual pints where we're up to the clubhouse just for a little sip after the round? That could be a while ago.
That's interesting. There's alcohol related NFTs now. I think.
That's insane.
There's a tequila brand that got into the space. There's a ton of actually. So it's wild, some of the things that that NFTs are infiltrating in terms of industries and segments of industries. It's endless. It's really endless and open to the imagination, and that's what I love about it.
Awesome. And you said you play a bit of golf yourself, or are you still trying to get out in the course?
Yeah, well, I live in Colorado now, so right now, if I look out my window, there's probably still snow on the ground, so it's been a little bit tougher lately. When I went down to Florida, I was fully prepared to play until it dropped to 38 degrees that morning, and we decided that we weren't going to play. I know, Florida, go figure.
That's crazy.
So I'm going to be down at the Party Tour in West Palm Beach next month in Florida.
Awesome.
That you should look that up. What they're creating down there is a really cool experience. They're mixing golf and fashion and art and music into a festival.
That's cool.
And I thought that was really cool. So we're going to be down there with those guys, and they've actually got some other NFT projects down there as well. But there's a really cool thing happening. And I think it's going to help us kind of bring all of these genres together because they are, I believe, speak to the audience today. Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of projects, even when you see like the Top Golf and many other things that are, when you boil it down to its core mission, it's really just trying to grow the game to a bigger audience and try and make it a little bit more accepting. And I'll definitely search that up. Was it Party? You said it was.
PAR and then TEE. So the Party Tour.
Awesome.
I can also connect you with those guys. They're great. They're really great guys, and they're doing some awesome work. And but it's things like that is the point, right? I mean, when you look at the Waste Management Open and what they've created for golf, that is what I'm talking about when I say that there is a new type of golfer entering the space. You know, that's obviously a bit of an extreme, right? It gets pretty wild. But that just lets you know that the sport itself has a level of acceptance and is embracing a level of enthusiasm, we can call it, that it didn't in the past. So I really think that things like that Party that I was just talking about, it's the timing of that is so perfect because people are obviously looking to have a good time in conjunction to the sport of golf, which, as I think before in the past, there was a little bit of a different connotation with the sport, right? So it's going through an interesting evolution.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a golfer right now. And if anyone wants to follow up and maybe check out Clubhouse Archives a little bit more, or wants to be involved in your project, where would they go online to check that out?
Yeah, you can go to clubhousearchives.io, all one word, .io, and then you could also check us out on Twitter. That's probably one of the best places for the NFT community. That's where all of the communities are really building. And then we're launching our Discord this week, and that will be available through Twitter and on the website.
Awesome.
So people can start filling the community to discuss and shape the future of what we're building.
Awesome. And I'll be one of the first ones in there. James, that was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thanks again for readjusting from your time. And I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. I think what you're building, by the way, is so extremely important for our industry. You're doing an incredible job, and the ones that I've seen thus far have been outstanding. So I look forward to following along on your journey as you build as well.
I appreciate it, James. Brilliant.
Thanks for watching the episode of this podcast. If you've made it this far, you can continue the fun on Discord, our Twitter, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel.